You think you're choosing love, but what if love is choosing you, based on the parts of yourself you've never dared to meet? Right now, someone is thinking about their ex. Someone else is staring at their phone, waiting for a text that will never come. And another person is lying awake, wondering why they keep attracting the same type of person who leaves them feeling empty. Not every person you've loved came into your life to stay. Some came to show you a truth about you. The question is, are you willing to see it? Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. What if the person you fell in love with was never just them? What if they were one of those disguises? A mirror, a symbol, a reflection of the part of you still waiting to be seen?" Most people think they fall in love because of attraction, compatibility, or timing. But Jung saw love as something far more mysterious and far more confronting. The love you choose is never random. It's a reflection of your unconscious, seeking resolution through connection. That's why the ones you chase often resemble the wounds you never named. That's why your patterns repeat, even when you swear you've learned your lesson. Because until you realize that your love life is a mirror, you'll keep mistaking your wounds for desire and calling your trauma destiny. Today, we're going to explore what your love secretly reveals about you. Not to judge or shame, but to awaken. Because when you understand the psychology behind who you choose, you stop choosing from pain and start choosing from clarity. This isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about becoming the person who attracts healthy love. It's about breaking cycles that have been running your life from the shadows. So if you've ever wondered why you keep ending up with the same type of person, or why real love feels so foreign when it shows up, this is for you. Let's start with something uncomfortable. You're not falling in love with who they are. You're falling in love with what they represent. The confident one may represent the power you suppress. The distant one may reflect the love you always had to chase as a child. The chaotic one may echo your belief that love must be earned through suffering. Your unconscious is choosing for you, based on the unmet needs it wants to complete. But here's what Jung knew that most people don't. Love can't complete you. It can only expose what still hurts. Jung called this the shadow, the part of ourselves we deny or bury. In relationships, the shadow shows up as the qualities we're irresistibly drawn to in others but can't accept in ourselves. That's why we're often drawn to people who make us feel it too much. They activate our deepest fears. Fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being seen, and then left. You call it love, you call it chemistry, you call it an inexplicable connection. But your nervous system calls it survival. Your unconscious calls it an opportunity for healing. And your shadow calls it home. Sarah always fell for men who were mysteriously unavailable. Artists, entrepreneurs, anyone with an excuse to disappear for days. She called it attraction to creativity and independence. But in therapy, she discovered something else. Growing up, her father was emotionally absent, physically there, but never truly present. Her unconscious had learned that love meant chasing someone who was always just out of reach. The men she chose weren't creative. They were recreating her childhood template of love as longing. Here's one of the most painful truths about human psychology. Don't just emotionally mistake intensity for connection because you're confused or naive. You mistake intensity for connection because it's familiar. Your nervous system, which was shaped by your earliest experiences of love and attachment, recognizes familiar patterns faster than your conscious mind recognizes what's actually healthy for you. Somewhere along the way, probably before you could even speak in full sentences, You learned that love feels like longing, that love feels like chaos, that love feels like having to prove your worth over and over again, that love feels like walking on eggshells, managing someone else's emotions, sacrificing your needs, or earning affection through perfect behavior. Your nervous system recognizes these familiar patterns and floods your body with the biochemistry of attraction. Not because this person is good for you, but because they feel like home. And home, even when it was painful, feels safer than the unknown territory of genuine love, respect, and emotional safety. But here's the truth that can set you free. What feels familiar is not always what's good for you. Sometimes it's just what your wounds. Remember, sometimes it's just what your trauma finds comfortable. Pause here and take a breath. Is this what you've been carrying all along? Jung discovered that we project onto others the qualities we haven't integrated in ourselves. In love, this becomes a dangerous game. You might be attracted to someone's confidence because you've disowned your own power. You might crave their emotional availability because you've learned to shut down your own needs. But projection isn't love. It's unconscious need, masquerading as romantic desire. It's your psyche trying to reclaim lost parts of yourself through another person. And it always ends in disappointment because no human being can carry the burden of being someone else's missing pieces. Jung identified two crucial archetypal figures that live in every human psyche: the anima and the animus. The anima represents the unconscious feminine aspects within each person, qualities like receptivity, intuition, emotional depth, creativity, and nurturing. The animus represents the unconscious masculine aspects, qualities like assertiveness, logic, action, protection, and focused intention. These aren't gender-specific concepts. Every person, regardless of gender, has both anima and animus within them. But most of us have rejected or underdeveloped one side or the other based on family conditioning, cultural programming, or survival needs. When you meet someone who strongly embodies your anima or animus, when they carry the qualities you've rejected in yourself, the attraction feels electric, cosmic, destined. Your entire being lights up because you're encountering a part of yourself you've been unconsciously seeking your entire life. But here's what most people don't realize. You're not actually seeing them. You're seeing a part of yourself, projected outward. You're falling in love with your own unlived life, wearing someone else's face. This is why some relationships feel so consuming, so all-encompassing. You're not just losing them when it ends. You're losing a piece of yourself you never knew you had. You're experiencing the collapse of a projection that felt more real than reality itself. If you consistently find yourself choosing people who can't fully show up emotionally, who can't commit, who keep you at arm's length, ask yourself this challenging question: what part of me isn't showing up for myself? What part of me isn't fully available to my own life, my own needs, my own emotional truth? Often, we choose emotionally unavailable people because we're emotionally unavailable to ourselves. We're so disconnected from our own inner world, our own needs, our own feelings, that we don't even know what healthy emotional availability looks like. We've learned to survive by shutting down, numbing out, or staying surface level in our own emotional experience. When someone who's actually emotionally available shows up, someone who can be present, vulnerable, consistent, it feels foreign, uncomfortable, even boring. Our nervous system doesn't know how to process emotional safety because it's never experienced it before. If this part hits something deep in you, keep going. The next few minutes might feel like looking into the most honest mirror you've ever encountered. Freud identified something he called the repetition compulsion. the unconscious drive to repeat traumatic or painful experiences in an attempt to master them. Jung expanded on this concept, suggesting that we don't just repeat trauma randomly, we repeat it with surgical precision, choosing people and situations that will activate our deepest wounds in exactly the right way to offer us another chance at healing. Your love life isn't a series of coincidences or bad luck. It's a carefully orchestrated, unconscious attempt to resolve your earliest wounds through adult relationships. You're not choosing the same person over and over because you're masochistic or broken. You're choosing them because your psyche is trying to heal something that was damaged long before you knew what love was supposed to feel like. The woman who keeps choosing men who abandon her is unconsciously trying to heal her relationship with her emotionally absent father. The man who keeps falling for women who criticize and control him is unconsciously trying to resolve his relationship with his overbearing mother. The person who keeps attracting partners who are addicted to work, alcohol, or other substances is unconsciously trying to save the parent they couldn't save as a child. But here's what Jung understood that Freud missed. The repetition isn't just about trauma, it's about wholeness. Your unconscious is trying to lead you back to the parts of yourself you lost, rejected, or never developed. Every person you attract is carrying medicine for your soul, even if that medicine tastes bitter going down. So here's the turning point that changes everything. The moment when you stop being a victim of your unconscious patterns and start becoming the author of your own love story. The people who broke your heart, who disappointed you, who couldn't love you the way you needed to be loved. They may have actually broken your illusion of who you thought you had to be to receive love. They didn't reject the real you. They rejected the mask you wore to survive. They couldn't love the authentic you because you weren't showing them the authentic you. You were showing them the version of yourself you thought would be acceptable, lovable, enough. You weren't abandoned because you were too much, or too needy, or too sensitive. You were abandoned because you were finally getting close to being real. And that scared people who had only learned how to love performances, not people. There comes a moment in every painful relationship, usually after the ending, in these dark silence of your own healing, when you have a choice. You can continue blaming them for leaving, for not seeing your worth, for not being capable of real love. Or you can ask the question that will change your life. What part of me keeps choosing what hurts? What inside me thinks this is what I deserve? This is the moment you stop being a victim of your unconscious patterns and start becoming the author of your own story. This is when you realize that your power was never in changing them, fixing them, or convincing them to love you better. Your power was always in understanding why you chose them in the first place. Michael had been in 3 long-term relationships. Each time, he gave everything: his time, energy, dreams. Each time, his partner eventually pulled away, saying they felt suffocated. For years, he blamed them for being unable to appreciate devotion. But during his dark night of the soul after the 3rd breakup, he finally asked the Jung question: what is this pattern trying to tell me? The answer was devastating and liberating. He had learned that love meant losing himself completely. His giving wasn't love. It was a desperate attempt to earn worth through service. Jung taught that the shadow isn't just our darkness, our flaws, our rejected parts. The shadow also contains our hidden gold, our unlived potential, our undeveloped gifts, our suppressed brilliance. The very patterns that cause us the most pain often contain the seeds of our greatest strengths, once we learn to integrate them consciously. Your tendency to give too much might contain the gift of deep compassion and generosity, once you learn to extend that same care to yourself first. Your pattern of choosing unavailable people might, contain the gift of independence and self-reliance. Once you stop fearing your own solitude and start celebrating it, your attraction to intense, dramatic relationships might contain the gift of passion and emotional depth. Once you learn to channel that intensity into creating a life that lights you up from the inside, when the pain repeats with such precision that you can't ignore it anymore, it's not punishment from the universe. It's not evidence that you're unlovable or destined to be alone. It's an invitation from your soul to ask deeper questions. What inside me still thinks I need to be small to be loved? What part of me believes I have to earn affection through perfect behavior, constant giving, or emotional self-abandonment? Where did I learn that love equals suffering, drama, or having to prove my worth over and over again? What am I really seeking in other people? Love or validation from my wounded ego? Connection or an escape from my own unhealed pain? Partnership or someone to complete the parts of myself I've never developed? These questions hurt because they require you to stop looking at what others did to you and start looking at what you've been doing to yourself. They hurt because they ask you to take responsibility, not for their behavior, but for your choices. They hurt because they reveal that your power was never in changing them. It was always in changing your relationship with yourself. Here's what Jung understood that most people miss. You can't heal your way to perfect love, but you can heal your way to conscious love. Conscious love doesn't mean finding someone without triggers. It means finding someone whose triggers and yours can dance together in awareness, not unconscious reaction. This is where Jung's concept of individuation becomes crucial. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about integrating all parts of yourself, including the parts that love from wounds. When you start to integrate your shadow in relationships, something miraculous happens. You stop attracting people who match your wounds and start attracting people who match your healing. But first, you have to be willing to sit with the uncomfortable. Truth, every person you've ever loved has been a teacher, even if the lesson was painful. Let's be honest about where you've been. You've stayed too long in relationships where your needs were invisible. You've explained your worth to people who couldn't see it. You've mistaken intensity for intimacy and anxiety for excitement. But now you get to ask better questions. Instead of, why don't they love me the way I love them? Ask, do I feel safe to be myself with this person? Instead of, how can I make them stay? Ask, do I want to stay when I'm not performing or trying to earn their affection? Instead of, what did I do wrong? Ask, am I choosing from love or from lack, from wholeness or from the need to be completed? Instead of, how can I be better for them? Ask, does this person inspire me to be more myself, or do they require me to be less myself? Here's what might surprise you. Real love doesn't make you constantly anxious. It doesn't ask you to shrink or perform or prove. It doesn't mirror your trauma. It mirrors your healing. Healthy love feels calm. And if you've lived in chaos, calm might feel like emptiness at first. Your nervous system might panic at the absence of drama, because drama has felt like connection. But calm isn't empty. Calm is spacious. It's room to breathe, to be, to grow. As you begin to heal, as you start to integrate your shadow and own your patterns, something beautiful and sometimes confusing happens. The people you're drawn to will change naturally, without you forcing it. You won't crave the thrill of uncertainty anymore. You'll crave the excitement of genuine connection, deep conversation, and shared growth. You won't be attracted to projects, people you can fix, save, or change. You'll be attracted to partners, people who can walk beside you as equals. You won't be magnetized by people who need you to complete them. You'll be magnetized by people who enhance the completeness you've already cultivated within yourself. Emma used to only feel sparks with men who were complicated, emotionally unavailable, commitment-phobic, or still healing from their own trauma. She thought this was chemistry. After a year of therapy and inner work, she met David. He was kind, consistent, available. Her first thought? He's boring. But she stayed curious instead of running. Over time, she realized what she had called boring was actually peace. What she had called chemistry was actually her nervous system recognizing familiar chaos. David didn't trigger her abandonment issues because he didn't abandon. He didn't trigger her need to prove her worth because he already saw it. For the first time, Emma experienced love as safety instead of survival. One of the most challenging parts of healing your love patterns is learning to receive the very thing you've been seeking. When someone treats you well consistently, when they show up without being asked, when they communicate clearly instead of making you guess their feelings, your shadow might whisper, "This is too good to be true. They don't really know me yet. Once they see my flaws, they'll leave. This feels too easy. Love is supposed to be hard." These thoughts aren't intuition or wisdom. They're old programs trying to keep you safe by keeping you in familiar patterns. They're your wounded parts trying to protect you from the vulnerability of actually being loved well. Learning to receive healthy love requires practicing a different kind of courage. The courage to be seen, appreciated, and cared for without earning it through suffering, perfect behavior, or emotional labor. Pause here and reflect. What would change in your life if you truly believed you deserved calm, consistent, unconditional love? What would you have to let go of? What would you have to embrace? There's a phase in the healing journey that no one talks about enough. The in-between space. This is where you're no longer attracted to your old patterns, but healthy relationships still feel foreign, uncomfortable, or even boring. In this space, you might feel lonely, not because you're alone, but because you're between worlds. You've outgrown your old way of loving, but you haven't fully grown into your new way yet. This is the sacred liminal space where transformation happens. It's uncomfortable, but it's also holy. In this space, you learn to be with yourself without needing someone else to complete you. You learn that loneliness isn't an emergency that needs to be solved by accepting less than you deserve. You learn that your worth isn't determined by who chooses you, but by how you choose yourself every single day. Healing your love patterns isn't just psychological work, it's nervous system work. Your body has been conditioned to interpret certain relationship dynamics as safe or dangerous based on your earliest experiences of love and attachment. If you grew up in chaos, your nervous system learned to stay alert, to scan for danger, to be ready for abandonment or criticism. Drama feels like home because it keeps your system activated in a familiar way. If you grew up having to earn love through perfect behavior, your nervous system learned to be hypervigilant about approval, to interpret any conflict as rejection, to stay in constant performance mode. Healing means teaching your nervous system new patterns. That safety can feel calm instead of chaotic. That love can be consistent instead of conditional. That you can be valued for who you are instead of what you do. This process takes time, patience, and immense self-compassion. Your body is learning a new language of love. And like any new language, it feels foreign at first. As you heal, you develop better discernment about relationship dynamics. You learn to distinguish between red flags, danger signals that indicate abuse, manipulation, or serious incompatibility. Yellow flags, areas that need attention or communication, but aren't necessarily deal breakers. And green flags, signs of health, maturity, and compatibility. Red flags might include consistent lying, emotional or physical abuse, active addiction without treatment, inability to take responsibility for mistakes, attempts to isolate you from friends and family. Yellow flags might include different communication styles that require negotiation, varying life goals that need discussion, different emotional processing speeds that require patience and understanding. Green flags might include consistent follow-through on commitments, ability to repair after conflict, respect for your boundaries, encouragement of your individual, growth, willingness to seek help when needed. Learning to recognize these distinctions helps you make choices from wisdom rather than wounding, from discernment rather than desperation. So, what does your love reveal about you? Everything, and nothing you need to be ashamed of. It reveals the depth of your longing for connection, the shape of your shadow, the places where you still think love must be earned rather than received. But it also reveals your courage, your resilience, your willingness to keep opening your heart even after it's been broken. It reveals your capacity for growth, your hunger for truth, your commitment to becoming someone who can love and be loved in increasingly conscious ways. Carl Jung didn't teach us to fix ourselves or eliminate our flaws. He taught us to integrate all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow, the wise and the wounded, the parts that love skillfully and the parts that love from pain. Integration means owning your patterns without being enslaved by them. It means understanding your triggers without being controlled by them. It means loving your whole self, including the parts that made poor choices in love, with the same compassion you'd offer a dear friend, because the love you truly deserve will never require you to abandon yourself to receive it. It will meet you in your wholeness, your complexity, your human imperfection. It will love your healed parts and your still healing parts with equal tenderness. When that day comes, and it will come, when you're ready, you'll finally see love not as a rescue mission or a completion project, but as a reflection of who you've become through your willingness to grow. You'll attract someone who doesn't need you to be perfect, but who appreciates your commitment to being authentic. Someone who doesn't try to fix your past, but who's excited to create a future together. Someone who sees your shadows and isn't scared, who witnesses your light and isn't threatened. Everything about love changes when you start choosing from consciousness instead of compulsion. The conversations change. Instead of arguing about who's right, you explore what's true. Instead of defending your positions, you share your vulnerabilities. Instead of trying to win, you try to understand. The energy changes. Instead of walking on eggshells, you walk in authenticity. Instead of trying to read minds and manage moods, you speak your truth and trust the other person to speak theirs. The foundation changes. Instead of building on need, you build on choice. Instead of staying out of fear, you stay out of love. Instead of relationships that drain you, you create relationships that energize you. This work doesn't end when you find someone wonderful. If anything, it deepens, because conscious love isn't a destination. It's a practice that you choose every day. Every disagreement becomes an opportunity to choose understanding over being right. Every trigger becomes a chance to respond from your adult self, rather than react from your wounded child. Every moment of conflict becomes an invitation to love more skillfully. You learn that healthy relationships aren't the absence of problems. They're the presence of two people committed to growing through problems together. When you heal your love patterns, when you break generational cycles of unconscious relating, you don't just change your own life. You change the trajectory for everyone who comes after you. Your children, biological or chosen, benefit from learning what healthy love looks like. Your friends witness a new way of being in relationship. Your community is enriched by your example of conscious loving. You become living proof that it's possible to transform pain into wisdom, wounds into strength, unconscious patterns into conscious choices. Jung believed that our individual healing contributes to the collective healing of humanity. Every time you choose consciousness over unconsciousness in love, you're not just healing your own lineage, you're adding to the growing pool of conscious love available in the world. You're becoming an ancestor that future generations will thank for doing the hard work of breaking cycles instead of perpetuating them. The ultimate question isn't who will love me, but how can I love consciously? When you shift that question, everything changes. You stop being a seeker, desperately searching for completion, and become a whole person, choosing to share your life. You stop being a victim of your unconscious patterns and become the author of your love story. You stop attracting from your lack and start attracting from your abundance. You stop choosing people who match your wounds and start choosing people who match your healing. If you're watching this and thinking about someone who broke your heart, remember, they weren't your enemy, they were your teacher. The pain they caused wasn't punishment. It was information about what needed healing within you. If you're currently in a relationship that's triggering your growth, remember, conflict isn't necessarily a sign you're wrong for each other. It might be a sign you're ready to love each other more consciously, more skillfully, more awake. If you're single and wondering if you'll ever find love, remember, the love you're seeking is first found within yourself. Every day you choose to heal, to grow, to become more conscious is a day you're preparing for the love that's preparing for you. Jung's invitation was simple but revolutionary. Make the unconscious conscious. In love, this means seeing your patterns without judgment, owning your projections without shame, and choosing from awareness instead of automaticity. It means being brave enough to ask, what is this relationship trying to teach me? And wise enough to learn the lesson instead of just enduring the pain. It means loving yourself enough to do the inner work, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means outgrowing people you care about, even when it means sitting with your own shadows until they transform into light. The love you attract will always be a mirror. The question is, are you ready to see what it reflects? Are you ready to love not from your wounds, but from your healing? Are you ready to stop repeating and start creating? Because when you are, the mirror changes. And so does everything else. If this resonated with you, if something inside you stirred with recognition, I invite you to subscribe and join this community of conscious souls doing the inner work. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss our deep dives into the psychology of authentic living. And if you think someone in your life could benefit from this message, share it with them. Sometimes a single insight can change everything. Remember, you are not broken. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are a soul learning to love consciously in a world that often teaches us to love from wounds. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep choosing awareness. The mirror is waiting to show you who you really are.